you judges grapple on a daily basis. I've presented a long paper which I believe will be circulated. I've prepared the paper in 2 different forms, and I will not read it. I will share my thoughts with you. But let me begin my presentation why I don't like long introductions. Nobody bothers about them. After they have been read, they forget them. And therefore, the shorter they are, the safer we are. Thank you very much. The subject of judicial integrity, particularly when one talks about Africa, must be understood in the context of what Africa is. It is our desire many times to talk about Africa as if we were homogeneous. That is not the current situation. The current situation is that we are talking about Africa, which has different judicial traditions. Those who are colonized by the Portuguese are distinctly Portuguese inheritance in their judicial tradition. Those who are colonized by the Belgians, the Democratic Republic of Congo, has a judicial system that mirrors to a certain extent that judicial inheritance. Those who are colonized by the British have that inheritance. And I suspect that there is a Commonwealth Judges Association at which when they meet, they look at that heritage. Those who are colonized by the French also have that tradition. Of course, there have been disruptions in the recent past. And there are a number of countries also which even grapple with Sharia law. And it is incumbent upon us that when we are called upon to talk about issues relating to the judiciary, we have to be sensitive to that reality. Many years ago, John Henry Clark, making reference to African governance, I will not use the word democracy, because it's a word that is bastardized, said that during the explosion for independence, many African countries inherited systems of governance which did not go back to the traditional systems. It is therefore the reality that when we talk about the judiciary, this is true of all African countries, we talk about separation of powers. And the whole idea of separation of powers, your judicial tradition notwithstanding, assumes and is grounded on the theory that there are 3 arms of government: the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. And of the 3 branches, it is the judiciary that is the unelected arm. And in theory, and I dare say in practice, it is the weakest of the 3 arms. And yet, it is argued that you can survive with a bad executive, you can survive a bad legislature, but the society will not survive with a bad judiciary. An oxymoron of sorts. And the judiciary is in theory designed to be the arbiter. An arbiter that is capable of interceding on the basis of the law and arriving at decisions which are based on the law for the general societal good. That question is, does that happen? Does it happen in most African countries? And I want you to look at Africa, cast your eyes. And when I say cast your eyes, I know that all of us here are handicapped. Handicapped by the kind of training that we received. Even when we do not want it, we are handicapped. You are trained in France, you are handicapped. You are trained in England or in Liberia on the basis of inherited law, you are handicapped. You are trained in Rwanda, Angola on the basis of Portuguese law, you are handicapped. All of us are handicapped without exception. And admitting that then gives us the humility to the issues that face us without being intellectually arrogant. Is that we confront, why do we have governments in the first place? Governments are instituted amongst men and women for the purpose of mediating our affairs for the general society. If that then is the case, one may ask, when we talk about the arm of the government in the nature of things, discharge its functions with integrity. One may say that the judiciary operates like the tongue between the teeth. It can be beaten at any time. It must therefore be agile. But its agility must be informed by certain realities. Every other country has a constitution of one kind or the other. And African countries have some of the most beautifully written constitutions, which are mostly honored in breach. African countries also have laws whose prescriptions appear stellar on paper, but which are honored in breach. African countries and African arms of governments also make pronouncements which are only mouth deep. They are not allowed to function in a robust manner. And therefore, when we talk about the integrity of the judiciary, it behooves us to look at a number of elements. Number one, what is the architecture of most judiciaries in Africa? And that takes us to the constitutions. And let us look at the constitutions of many African countries. First of all, are they stable constitutions? And when I talk about stability, I'm asking the questions, have they been disrupted? And there are different ways of disruptions. In many and in quite a number of the member countries here, there are those which have gone through coup d'etats. And when they go through coup d'etats, the first casualty is normally the constitution. And when a constitution is disturbed in that manner, it means that all arms of government are disturbed. The integrity of the constitution, because immediately there is a coup d'etat, for example, the first thing that normally happens is that the coup makers will demand of the Chief Justice that they are sworn in. They are sworn in, notwithstanding that they have ascended to power in a manner that is not contemplated by the Constitution. If that happens, what then is the status of the judiciary in terms of integrity? How does it then begin to operate from that day hence? Number two, constitutions are also disturbed by amendments, and many countries who are members of the association who are represented here will remember that prior to 1989, we had constitutions which largely mirrored different traditions that I've talked about. If you look at many of the former French colonies, you'll find that the constitution mirrored the Gaullist constitution of 1958. If you look at the former British colonies, they mirrored what is normally referred to as the Westminster model constitutions. The former Angolan colonies were a little bit different because of the manner in which they regained independence. So you find that there was a Marxist element in the constitutions of Angola, in the constitutions of Mozambique, in the constitutions of Guinea-Bissau, and to a certain extent the constitutions of Cabo Verde. And if you go to many of these countries, you find that those constitutional dispensations periodically were being bombarded, because you must never ever forget, despite those who say that Africans are in a complaining mode, African constitutions are invariably under assault by different powers who want to change them in the quest to have Africa democratized, whatever democratized means. So that after 1989, you saw there was this spree of new constitutional dispensation, when the Western world had convinced many African countries that democracy equals to having multi-party politics. Democracy equals to having a free press. Democracy equals to having a free civil society. All of us went into an amendment spree of our constitutions. And when those amendments were taking place, some of the things that were then talked about is the independence of the judiciary. Remember the law principles talking about impartiality of the judiciary, talking about independence of the judiciary, talking about the rule of law, and all these terms sometimes not undermining the fact that they have a universal flavor. There is a sense in which sometimes many of these prescriptions that African countries swallow line, hook, and sinker have a Eurocentric aspect to them. So that when we talk about some of these terminology, we must remember that they are burdened with certain baggages. But I'm not forgetful of the fact that I was asked to talk about what we do to ensure that there is integrity in the judiciary. That is a debate that we must not forget. When we talk about the judiciary and we talk about its integrity, it starts with the manner in which you appoint judges. There are different methods of appointing judges. The old way used to be that the president of the country or the chief executive appoints judges without reference to anything. That used to be the case. And it used to be argued in those days that chief executives or presidents had perfected the art of appointing judges who will do the appointment of judges is undermined and compromised through political influence. It was then argued that you want to institutionalize the appointment of judges and Judicial Service Commission were then put in place. And remember, in many African countries, there are also several considerations to be taken into account beyond gender. Which we now know is that you want to have some kind of gender parity. There is also ethnicity. There are countries
Focal TV, bringing you innovation to broadcasting, news, views, comments, and analysis of issues happening in Liberia and the rest of the world. Focal TV, with check and balance, we break it as it unfolds. Focal TV, bringing you face-to-face with newsmakers in town. Focal TV, the best online platform in broadcasting. Focal TV, located Focal TV, bringing you innovation to broadcasting, news, views, comments, and analysis of issues happening in Liberia and the rest of the world. Focal TV, with check and balance, we break it as it unfolds. Focal TV, bringing you face-to-face with newsmakers in town. Focal TV, the best online platform in broadcasting. Focal TV, located at Topo Village, Somalia Drive, Liberia. Be the part and experience the best in online broadcasting. Keep focal.